postal workers, how you doing? First of all, I want to say thank you to my Minnesota peeps who walked me up here. Give us a hand, would you not? These are the best people, man. I love them. They're awesome. And if they say, Keith, we're about to roll on Staples, man. You coming with us? Like, absolutely. Where's my sign? And we'll do it today. We'll do it tomorrow. We'll do it whenever we need to. I also want to thank a gentleman, a young fellow who's come to be a very good friend of mine. His name is Mark Demonstein. He's worth a hand, isn't he? Give it to him. Give it up. This young man here, I want you to know, you all know him as the president of ABWU, and he's a great president. But I want you to know that when he became president, there's a new mood in Washington because he brought with him the spirit and the heart of an organizer and a don't back down, fight back spirit. And you all wouldn't have a fight back president unless you were fight back union members. Am I right about that? It takes a fight back union to have a fight back president and vice president, right? So I just want to say thank you to your leadership. You guys are awesome. The whole leadership team is for the people of the United States, making sure that the folks can get their mail, making sure that the people who deliver the mail are properly represented. I just want to say thank you, Mark, for being such a great friend. And thank you to the whole leadership team. Well, let me just tell you this. There's a good friend of mine, and his name's Lenny. And Lenny lives in my district. And I've been able to say Lenny's a good friend of mine for now about 12, 15 years. And Lenny tells me that, look, Keith, you see me today, and I'm a retired postal worker, was in the postal union leadership. But I want you to know that when I was a kid, I had several brothers and sisters. My mom was a homemaker, and my father went to his death in an untimely way. And so when we lost my dad, we didn't know what we were going to do. My mom hadn't been in the workforce. She was looking after us, and we were trying to go to school, and there's a bunch of us. But it was the Social Security survivors benefits that kept our family together. But I can tell you this too, Keith, when I was a young man, I got old enough, just old enough to start working, and I was able, after I got through high school, to get a job at the post office. And it gave me a good job with a good pay and good benefits, and I liked it because I got to be outside carrying the mail. And he said, I was handing mail out, and this was in the 60s, so I was giving notices, draft notices to people, and one day, look inside my mail satchel, and I find mine, one with my name on it. And Lenny then left the Postal Service, went to be a soldier in a war that he didn't even agree with. He actually thought the Vietnam War was not right, but his country called him, and so he answered. And he saw some of the toughest battles of the Vietnam War. I mean, he was on the front line, and he thanks God every day he didn't get shot and came back alive, but he did that. But when he got back to the United States, he was thinking, what am I going to do? I got a brand new girlfriend whom I'm about to marry. We got a baby on the way. What are we going to do? Well, he went to the post office, and he had a good job at the post office, and he worked at the post office for years and years until he became a union president. And then after that, his kids grew up, they got older, and he said, you know, I've been able to earn a good life. I've been able to get a good retirement. I chose not to go to college myself, but my son went. And you know what? I'm worried about my country. I'm worried about the Postal Service. We've got to have some real change around here, Keith, or the American people are not going to have the first-class mail system that they deserve. And not only that, they're going to take away an institution that is a time-honored, venerated institution that sticks by and serves the American people and has been doing it for years and years and years. And what I'm talking about is the American Postal Service, everybody. Now, I just want to tell you that it was not after the Civil War, but well before it in 1832 that we got the first black postal worker. Her name was Mary Fields, and she was carrying the mail in 1832. 1832, black woman, male postal worker. I want you to know that the post office has been the place where veterans could go to get a good, decent job. The Postal Service, anybody who's a vet out there, raise your hand if you are a veteran. There you go. Give yourselves a hand. Thank you for your service to our nation. The United States Postal Service hires more women. Women could get a fairer shot than they have in the rest of the economy because of the Postal Service. And I'm telling you that a lot of African Americans, when they couldn't get any work anywhere, they could go to the post office and get a good job there. And so a lot of African American families were sustained, a lot of Latino families. I'm telling you that in this country, the Postal Service has been a place that has not just made sure that the American people got their parcels and their letters on time, but it's also been an employer that has been a strong union employer, right? Am I right about that? And has stood for equal opportunity. And yet we got people hanging around, lurking around, looking at every opportunity to try to privatize our post office, and we're not going to let them do it. I'm telling you, we're not going to let them do it. I'm telling you that this move to consolidate the post office is not going to be met without a big fight. We're going to stand up against it, and I'm telling you now that in Congress, we are organizing members of Congress every day to stand with the Postal Service and stand against these cuts and these efforts to consolidate. You know and I know postal operations are profitable and the cuts are not needed. The Postal Service earned an operating profit in 2013, 14, and 15, and that's why the closures and consolidations are so troubling. They're worrisome because you and I both know that they will tell you that we got to cut these things for these costs, but really it's just so that some companies should try to get their greedy little hands on part of what the Postal Service does every day. They want to leave all the other parts, but they want to get the parts they can make some money on and thereby damage and undermine the American people and hurt our union, and we're not going to let it stand. Now, this pre-funding thing, that's totally downer, right? One of the root causes, as you know, is the pre-funding of the problem. Pre-funding payments cost the Postal Service $5.6 billion a year. No other government or private corporation is required to do this by law. It's unfair and unacceptable, and we must stand against it. The federal government does not pre-fund, and only about a third of Fortune 500, Fortune 1000 companies who offer benefits pre-fund. The Postal Service should instead be able to borrow to improve the postal network. We've got to have a Postal Service that is relieved of this burden of pre-funding because it's unfair and no one else has to do it, and it serves as the basis for the privatizers to try to cut our Postal Service, and we won't let them do it. Now look, they're trying to do other things too, and you know what they are. Some are just trying to flat out privatize, and I just want to say this about privatization. Privatization is not about cutting costs. Privatization is not about building efficiency. Privatization is so that some people in government can give the public trust and the public job to their cronies so that they can make some money. That's what privatization is all about. Privatization is not about efficiency and cost cutting. Privatization is about a person saying, hey, buddy, you can have the contract that used to be in the hands of a public entity. And if you want an example of privatization and what it can do, you need go no further than look at the Iraq War. You know they tried to privatize that. What about Blackwater and Triple Canopy? They try to privatize that. They try to privatize public schools. They try to privatize prisons. And I'm so proud that the U.S. Bureau of Prisons just last week said the federal government will not renew any more private prison contracts. This is a good thing. No, no, no. Things that are in the public interest must remain in the public hands. Things that are in the public interest got to stay in public hands. And as you know, I've stood with you to stop Staples, and I'll do it again. And I look forward to that fight. Using low-wage, poorly trained Staples employees is no solution. And I want sworn, experienced, well-trained APW workers handling the mail, not Staples. And in an age where you can hardly even open up your email without wondering who else been looking at it, right? You know that you can open up your mail and trust that the person who wrote it is the last person who saw it. Thank goodness for that. Now, on the issue of overnight delivery, the Postal Service has also been reducing service standards for first-class mail. As you know, stopping overnight delivery paves the way for closing processing plants. This is not good service to the American people, and it's not good for postal workers. We need to stand up for our Postal Service and make sure that they are able to maintain high-quality delivery standards Americans expect. And we will fight with you for that. Now, one of the things that's a bright light on the horizon, and we've all got to fight for it and stand for it, is postal banking. Postal banking is a good thing, and while I want to see us move forward and do more postal banking, and I can tell you that in the Progressive Caucus in Congress, we got 72 members, and all of us are in favor of fighting for more postal banking at a time when there are not enough banks, at a time when there are not enough credit unions. There are plenty enough postal offices all over America, and if we did postal banking, people in the rural parts of this nation and in the underserved inner city could get access to banking services. We need postal banking, everybody. There are 68 million adults who are unbanked or underbanked, and if people could do postal banking, it would spare them from the payday lenders and all the sharp practices that drain wealth from people, working people every single day. What better place than the post office to get access to basic bill paying, check cashing, and small loans? We've got to fight for this and make it a major agenda. Now, I just want to tell you this, everybody. The fact of the matter is that we have to carry forth this agenda for postal banking and a number of other things based on activism in the street. Activism in the street and organizing is the key to success to see our agenda. If we don't want to see the Postal Service cut, we've got to get in the street. If we do want to see postal banking, we've got to get in the street. We've got to get out there and be active and on the ground and raise our voices and be those leaders in every and each community all over this country that brings up people's spirits and gets them out there to fight not only for their postal service, but to make sure that we do not send our jobs over our seas with the Trans-Pacific Partnership. We've got to make sure that we do not keep on fracking this country to death, and make sure that we put energy and time into renewable energy. We've got to make college affordable and lift the debt burden off of our students. And we've got to raise the minimum wage for workers to $15 an hour. We've got to do all these things, but I just want to tell you this. The only way to do it is to get into the street. Now, I want you to know something. In 2014, just 2 years ago, the voter turnout was only 36% across this nation. 36% voter turnout. And I want to tell you that it's not by accident that the turnout is so low. In North Carolina, the Republicans, the conservatives took over the state. First thing they do, get rid of same-day voter registration. Next thing they do, take away Sunday voting so that you can't do souls to the polls. I'm telling you that we have seen voter turnout go down year after year. In fact, if you look at the United States and compare it to other large countries across the globe, you will find that we have some of the lowest turnout amongst all of them, lower than Canada, lower than France, low turnout. And it's not an accident. The right wing wants to suppress the vote. and they have been doing a good job at it. It is us in this room who are going to reverse this trend. We have got to go to our neighbors, we have got to go to our friends, and we got to turn out the vote. And we got to make sure that nobody gets into the United States Congress unless they are committing to stand with the postal workers and the American people and the Postal Service. You know, people talk about this election all the time, and they always talk about the presidential. You know, it's perhaps just as important to make sure you got a Congress that's going to stand up for the Postal Service. You got to stand for you need to have some state legislative races to make sure that people can vote. As I just said to you, you look across this country and you got states that are taking away the right to vote all the time, passing photo ID laws, doing all these kinds of things. But what I'm telling you is that if APWU members across the nation say, look, we're going to take this thing over, we have an agenda we're going to pass, and we are going to increase participation, and the only people who we're going to let go into office are the people who stand for our issues. That would make a big difference, everybody. It's a good thing that we're meeting in August, because it's going to be Labor Day in a very short period of time. And when we get to Labor Day, I'm going to tell you this, the whole country is going to be focused on the election. And I hope that you will be out there talking about focusing people's attention on these elections that really matter, which are the ones that are on the ground, on the street, all across this nation. Now, I want to tell you that your energy and Mark Dimenstein's energy has made a big difference. We asked him what his opinion was on the platform, the Democratic platform. And we were told that, you know what, the platform has got to have a call for postal banking in it. And I'm telling you right now, we put in the Democratic Party platform a call for postal banking. It's in there. The platform also calls for $15 minimum wage, expand Social Security, close private prisons, debt-free college, public option, and a financial transactions tax. But we cannot get these things unless we fight for them and get a Congress and a state legislature and get politicians who are going to stand up for them. Politicians will see the light when they feel the heat, but you got to make them feel the heat by being out there and putting on the pressure. You know, I'm going to tell you this, the platform also has strong support for the post office, rejecting privatization, specifically in the platform rejecting privatization. Eliminate pre-funding. We call specifically for the elimination of pre-funding. This is the position of the Democratic Party, and it did not happen because of good looks and charm, although Mark has both those things. It happened because of organizing and pressure. And the pressure has got to remain very strong in order to make these things not just platform positions, but positions in law. We got to restore the appropriate service levels, including overnight delivery and 6-day delivery. We got to appoint strong champions to the Board of Governors. You know, they've been ignored in the Board of Governors. And they hope that it shrinks down so small that the post office can't function. We got to have strong champions on the Board of Governors. And we got to expand postal services to things like voting by mail like they got in Oregon. That makes sure that more people vote. And we've, of course, got to push for postal banking. You know, our opponents, they want to divide and they want to conquer us. But I'm going to tell you this. I was an early supporter of Bernie Sanders. Bernie Sanders is one who stood and fought for the things that we stand for today. And I'm telling you this about Bernie. Bernie knows very well that if we don't come together and unify behind institutions like the post office, we will be divided and we will be conquered. Bernie knows that we've got to defeat Donald Trump. He said, we don't want, Donald Trump said that in terms of refugees, we don't want them in our country. He wants to kick people out. Donald Trump said he would shut down mosques in America and keep Muslims out of the country. He said he can't even trust a judge born in Indiana because his parents are from Mexico. And he tells us that LGBTQ community, Latinos and Muslims are the problem. But hating our neighbors is not going to raise our wages. It's not going to house us, and it certainly is not going to preserve the post office. We got to meet that man's hate with love. And you know what? we gotta get together and commit ourselves to get our neighbors together, pull our neighbors' energy together, and inspire them to get out there and do maximum voter turnout. So I want to know, and I want to ask you guys, are you guys willing to get out there and take the energy in this room and to knock on doors to get people to vote all over this country? Are y'all willing to do that? Are you willing to make calls all over this nation to get people out to vote? Are you willing to recruit friends to come on out? Now, let me just say this. Elections are not the end of anything. Elections are the beginning of something. Understand that when the election ends, the activism must begin. Whoever gets elected must be held accountable for the platform they have sworn to. But you can't hold them accountable to a platform unless you get them in. So what I'm saying to you right now is that your energy, your time, your pressure is going to be essential between now and November, and then after that, the real work starts so that we can protect our great American institutions like the post office and take them where they are and even go further. With your help, we can do this thing. You guys got the answer to this nation's problems right here because you're willing to fight, you're willing to stand up, and you will never, ever, ever back down. Thank you all very much.